Good Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jurnee Taylor, and here are the top stories we're following for you now at noon. A community in Ohio could get answers today. A look at the health concerns related to the burn-off of toxic chemicals after a train derailment. Plus, we've got teams at the Capitol looking into some important House bills being debated. The impact of two of those bills in 4 minutes. And as investigators zero in on a possible motive, we are learning much more about the victims of the MSU shooting. Just ahead, we'll show you how this community is coming together. But first, meteorologist Scott Covert is in for Nathan Scott this afternoon. We're expecting some potentially severe storms tonight. What should we keep an eye out for, Scott?
Jurnee, we're looking at all types of severe weather on tap for this evening, from damaging winds, large hail, even the potential of some strong tornadoes in eastern Arkansas. You'll take a look here at this severe weather risk, and it shows that level 3 or an enhanced potential from Little Rock to Pine Bluff, Monticello, Stuttgart, a good majority of the eastern half of Arkansas. Now, while that is the most favored area, it's not everyone that's going to see the potential. In fact, most of the state under some level of concern. The yellow indicates a level 2 risk of severe storms. Most of our skies are clearing out. We're not tracking anything on radar here at the noon hour. And while that sounds good, unfortunately, the clearing skies has allowed our temperatures to really warm up, adding some fuel for those thunderstorms to tap into later this evening. 72, the current temperature in Little Rock, 68 currently in Conway. Today's high, 75 degrees. Those chances of storms increase late tonight into the overnight hours. I've got a timeline for you coming up in just about 12 minutes.
Scott, thank you. Well, residents in Ohio remain reluctant to accept official advice that it is safe to return home following a train derailment 12 days ago. Now people are complaining about respiratory issues, including burning eyes, as well as decrease or deceased wildlife as far south as the Ohio River. Lilia Luciano reports from Ohio.
I would be alert and concerned, but I think I would probably be back in my house.
That was Ohio Governor Mike DeWine's answer when he was asked whether he would move back home if he lived in East Palestine, Ohio, though he did offer caveats.
I think that I would be drinking the bottled water.
There have been numerous reports in recent days of respiratory issues, burning eyes, and dead wildlife, including at least 3,500 confirmed dead fish killed by contamination.
We don't have any evidence of non-aquatic species suffering from the derailment. 5
of the train cars were carrying vinyl chloride, a highly combustible chemical linked to a higher risk of some kinds of cancers. Crews conducted a controlled release of the carcinogen to reduce the risk of an explosion.
When you have combustion or burning, you create all sorts of different byproducts. It's important to understand to cast a wide net when you're testing, because you want to narrow out and rule out chemicals that could pose an acute health risk or linger around.
The governor and other officials lifted the town's evacuation order a week ago after health officials said air quality was back to acceptable levels and the city's main water supply, they said, was safe. 2 days after the evacuation order was lifted, the EPA said 3 additional hazardous chemicals were found on the derailed train cars.
This train apparently was not considered a high hazardous material train.
Yesterday, Governor DeWine revealed that since only 20 of the 150 cars contained hazardous materials, the company, citing federal law, was not required to notify the state of Ohio that the train had toxic chemicals on board.
Frankly, if this is true, and I'm told it's true, this is absurd.
Lilia Luciano, CBS News.
Advocates for solar energy made their voices heard at the Capitol yesterday, speaking out against House Bill 1370. Opponents from businesses, cities, schools, and more say this piece of legislation threatens Arkansas's solar future. This because HB 1370 would end the 20-year-old Arkansas Renewable Energy Development Act, and more importantly, alter a law passed in 2019. The bill's sponsor says the current plan is unfair to those without solar power, But the city manager of Hot Springs, Bill Burrow, doesn't agree because not everyone wants to tap into the industry.
I'd like to see this bill allow for competition in the energy industry. You know, when there's a monopoly in anything, only thing we're going to see is rates rise. And this allows an even playing field for those that want to embark on the project. Not all cities, not all people will want to go solar, but it allows them the opportunity to.
Burrow says the city of Hot Springs currently has a steady grasp of a beneficial solar energy project, which could bring big gains for the city. Another bill being considered at the state capitol is taking aim at public assistance. The purpose of this bill is to essentially move Arkansans on welfare back to work sooner by cutting the 2-year state limitation on cash welfare in half to just 1 year for households with work-eligible adults. The bill states that more than half of all recipients of public assistance have been on the program for longer than 18 months. If this alter is passed, bill sponsors say Arkansas could lead the nation in its cash welfare program, save taxpayers money, and increase the state's workforce. HB 1401 has been referred to the Public Health, Welfare and Labor Committee, which will meet tomorrow to discuss this proposed legislation. An unofficial count is in on the vote for the North Little Rock Library System millage increase. It's close, with 51% siding against the millage. That advantage is actually just 30 votes. We're not confirming an official result yet, since a single batch of ballots could swing the result. The tremendous tragedy of those deadly earthquakes in Turkey and Syria is made even worse in some areas by a lack of aid. That's especially true in Syria, where many victims were refugees from the country's civil war. CBS's Imtiaz Teeb crossed the Syrian border and found heartbreak and determination among them.
At just 5 years old, little Jurnee is afraid and in pain. Doctors say her leg will need to be amputated. She became a symbol of the earthquake's cruelty when this video of her trapped under the rubble in rebel-held Idlib, along with her baby brother Abdullah, went viral. Jurnee can be heard pleading with her rescuers, saying, "Please, get me out of here." 9-month-old Abdullah is being treated in the bed next to her. While they both may have survived the quake, their mom, dad, brothers, and sisters all died. Abdullah is their aunt.
How are you feeling with this terrible situation?
My heart is burning, she says. Idlib's Haddam City Hospital is straining under the weight of so much pain and need.
Do you have what you need, or do you feel forgotten by the world?
The world has definitely forgotten us, he says. We haven't received aid in a very long time. Across the rebel-held territory, buildings have collapsed in their hundreds.
The need here is so great, but so little aid has come here to northern Syria, and people are desperate.
A desperation that is tangled up in the fault lines of Syria's decade-long civil war. President Bashar al-Assad wants control of all supply routes, and world leaders don't want to legitimize a regime they've sanctioned. A complex situation that stands in the way of helping the seriously injured, like little Bayan, who's being visited by her cousin.
Nice to meet you too.
Her older sister Fatima lies in a bed next to her with an injured leg. Their aunt, Hassan, tells us their mother died in the quake. We haven't told them about their mother yet, she says. I don't have the heart to tell them she's dead.
Now, the UN says 2.5 million Syrian children have been affected by the quake and are in desperate need of the basics like clean drinking water and adequate shelter, so little of which is available, and still so much uncertainty about when or if they might get it. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, Hatay, Turkey.
Well, after getting a classified briefing yesterday on the 3 objects the U.S. military has shot down in recent days, Senate lawmakers are receiving another closed-door briefing today. There's new information about the Chinese spy balloon that the U.S. military shot down off the Atlantic coast. CBS News has learned U.S. intelligence tracked the balloon as far as islands off the south coast of China last month. Despite the briefing today, many Republicans are calling on President Biden to answer the American public's questions directly.
My phone's ringing off the wall, and we got a president of the United States and not saying anything.
What are these things? Who sent them here? And what are they doing here?
The U.S. said the suspected Chinese balloon was equipped to detect and collect intelligence signals, but Beijing insists it was a weather research airship. Michigan State University plans to hold a vigil this evening to honor the victims of Monday's deadly shooting. 3 students were killed and several more were hurt in Monday night's attack. We are learning more about those who died, and we are also hearing from students who are telling their tales of survival. Roxana Siberia reports from East Lansing, Michigan.
Oh my God.
Just after 8:15 p.m. Monday, an emergency alert instructed students to run, hide, or if there was no other option, fight.
We had went to the bathroom and we barricaded the door with a couch and we just turned all the lights off.
That harrowing account was similarly shared by many as law enforcement swarmed MSU's campus. Police say a more than 3-hour search for the shooter ensued before he fatally shot himself at an off-campus location.
This will always be in the back of my mind.
19-year-old freshman Ryan Cullihan told us he called his family as he hid in the library with his girlfriend.
Did you ever think this could be the last time I'm speaking to my family?
It crossed my mind, yeah, multiple times.
The students killed in the shooting are Ariel Anderson, who wanted to be a pediatrician, Brian Frazier, the president of his fraternity, and Alexandria Werner, an all-state athlete.
Iconic human being.
Billy Schellenbarger is the superintendent of Clawson Public Schools, where Werner was previously a high school student.
Her heart was huge. Her kindness and compassion were second to none.
According to law enforcement, the gunman had no ties to MSU, but he did have a criminal record and was sentenced to a year of probation in 2019 for illegally carrying a concealed weapon without a proper permit.
He's always popping off some rounds.
Neighbors say they regularly heard him firing a weapon in the backyard of the Lansing home where he lived with his parents.
We heard the shots and stuff and we'd be like, what the heck?
Here at the MSU Spartan statue, a tribute to the victims is growing. A vigil will be held for them tonight. Roxana Siberia, CBS News, East Lansing, Michigan.
Smaller restaurants that are often overlooked are getting a boost from social media. After the break, how influencers are helping uncover hidden gems. We are also halfway through the week. Scott, our eyes are on the skies.
They sure are indeed. It feels a lot like spring outside. It looks like spring. Unfortunately, that means spring-like severe storms still in the forecast for tonight. I've got the very latest on when you can expect them coming up.